So guys, I had the chance of meeting Bree here. Gianni introduced me to her, and Gianni said she was the founder of Build Train Race. How was that?
I think from a conception standpoint, I come from motorcycle racing, from the road racing side. So I had always dreamed of having a women's platform to empower more women to getting into motorsports. And it didn't happen for a long time. 2 decades later, Royal Enfield and my partner in the UK, Adrian, believed in this crazy idea I had to form the Build Train Race program. So it was with my partner in the UK. He really helps with the funding and the internal support. I was able to launch the program in the US about 2.5, 3 years ago, where we started with 4 women in flat track.
Just like here, 4 women?
Just 4, yeah. So we like to start with a small group because we like to make sure that we understand the concepts and the needs, and that's per country. So the US was the first in 2019, and we had 4 women, and then COVID happened and the pandemic, and everything got crazy. And we knew we wanted to launch it in Brazil, but because everything was shut down here, we did the video submissions. We know who we wanted, but it took forever for us to be able to announce it because we wanted to make sure the situation was better out there for everybody. For year 2 is we launched the flat track program for Brazil, and then we launched a new program which was with road racing for the USA. So in the USA we have flat track and road racing, and then we have the Build Train Race flat track program here in Brazil. This is the last race of the season. It kind of went by quick. We had to put everything all together within a couple months' time. But we will come back for a second season, and we're hoping to bring even more women on the grid next year.
What are the Instagram handles?
Royal Enfield BR, Royal Enfield _NA, but we also have a website. It's buildtrainrace.com. US flat track, the Brazil flat track, and the US road racing.
How has the Build Train Race increased since the first version with 4 racers?
It's increased significantly, and I think it's not just from a participant standpoint. I think it's also from the people that are helping the program. So the series that help run it, whether it's Flat Track BR, whether it's Moto America, or whether it's American Flat Track in the US, they really see the reason why we have these programs, and then the sponsors that come on board. So we have sponsors, S&S sponsors, all of the women in Brazil and all the women in road racing and flat track in the US. So without sponsors like that, we really couldn't do these programs. A lot of the women are new to motorsports, and they might be street riders, but they don't have maybe the relationships with parts vendors. So it's really important that we not only supply them with the motorcycle, the training, but also support when we can in terms of parts with our sponsors. So it's grown exponentially.
What did you envision when you first started Build Train Race? How do you see the Bree that started it, and how do you see it's going now?
I think every time I'm out here with the program, whether it's in the US or Brazil, I find things that I want to change or I want to improve. We're seeing how the women react to certain situations. You were around me earlier when I was talking to Gianni, and seeing her progress, riding from the street on a bike that would probably never be raced in real life, and seeing how far she's come, but also understanding the importance of applying training per the skill level of each participant. So, you know, Gianni might excel in one skill but might need help in another, whereas another one is really great in one skill and not. I think the training portion is a huge focus for me here in Brazil. The builds, it's a little different. The bikes are a little bit more stock than we have in the US. The women have kind of gone a little further. So how can I capitalize on the training and make flat track racers out of all these women? So now it's just their second weekend ever on flat track bikes, and just seeing them like being able to go out there and have confidence, but how do we build on that? I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I have, but I also hope this program inspires more women, whether they race on a Royal Enfield or something else, to get out there and try, whether it's motocross, you know, flat track racing, road racing. I think no matter where you come from or no matter who you are, you can do anything.
Absolutely. And how did this first idea of having a Brazilian version of Build Train Race start?
I'm the head of marketing for all of the Americas, so I take care of North, South, and Central America. And for whatever I do in the U.S., if it's successful in the U.S., I absolutely want to do it in Brazil. Brazil is also the 3rd largest two-wheeler market in the world. It's an under-tapped audience. You know, from a consumer standpoint, a lot of people buy motorcycles, but it's smaller CCs. So how do we get people into the middleweight segment, which is Royal Enfield's sweet spot, or even into motorsports itself? Flat track is a relatively new sport here, so it's a prime opportunity to grow the sport.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. What do you expect for next season?
We're going to have a bigger grid. So I'm looking to do 6 to 7 racers next season for BTR here. Yeah, so if anyone's interested, just email us or send us a message
Email
on the
them.
website. Yeah. But it's also, I want to take more of a hands-on approach and help them, mentor them a little bit more in the build process and check in with them a little bit more during the build, and then have more races. I want, and if Flavia's watching, I want about 8 races next year over a
Wow.
course of 8 different weekends.
Wow.
And I think it's important because the amount of time that they put into building the bike and researching how to ride, getting them as much track time is beneficial for them and for us.
Yeah. Gianni was explaining that she practiced a lot in Brasilia, but when she practiced on the streets.
Yeah.
You know, and then someone said you shouldn't be practicing on the streets because it's totally unrelated to the track. You should go to grass, gravel, dirt tracks.
It depends. Flavia only brought in here like 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still a very small group of people. In the U.S. and even Europe, you have indoor flat track racing, which is on pavement. You have it on gravel, you have it on dirt, you have all these different types of gravel that people race on. If the street is your only form of practice, that's fine. I started practicing flat track on a parking lot.
Wow.
But is it going to be the same kind of ride? No, because you slide a little bit more when you're on the dirt, right? And you don't have as much, grip necessarily. So I think is fine. Getting out there, and it's also understanding the bike. It's not a motor that she's ever rode before. It's not a seating position. She has no front brake on this bike. So even riding it up and down the street and understanding how that functions is important. So any kind of practice time is important.
Is there any advice you'd like to give to women starting?
Don't be afraid. None of these women really come from a flat track background. None of these women have put themselves out there. Don't be afraid, and I think the most important thing is to take chances and have confidence in yourself.
That's brilliant. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And I guess I'll see you around in
Yeah.
the next Build Train races.
Yeah.
You're always going to be very welcome.
Yeah, I love Brazil. I'll come back anytime.